A narcissistic husband treats his wife in a way that leaves deep emotional scars, often without her even realizing how much damage is being done until much later. From the outside, people may assume the marriage looks normal, sometimes even perfect, because narcissists are skilled at putting on a charming mask for others. But behind closed doors, the wife often becomes the target of control, manipulation, and constant emotional pressure. When a woman first meets a narcissistic man, she often feels as though she has finally found her soulmate. He comes across as attentive, affectionate, and deeply invested in her happiness. This stage, often called love bombing, is designed with precision. He listens carefully to her stories, remembers tiny details about her life, showers her with compliments, and may even move the relationship forward quickly by talking about marriage, future plans, or a life together. To the wife, it feels like destiny, like someone finally sees her for who she truly is. But this overwhelming affection is not rooted in genuine love. It is a strategy to capture her trust and devotion. The narcissistic husband knows how to make his wife feel like the most cherished person in the world. He may send constant messages, call her frequently, or surprise her with gifts and gestures. At this stage, he seems generous with his time and energy, and she begins to believe she is the center of his universe. What she doesn't realize is that this is a calculated performance. His goal is not to build a healthy bond but to secure control. By creating an emotional high, he ensures that she becomes deeply attached to him before he reveals his true self. This illusion of love is dangerous because it sets the foundation for the cycle of abuse that follows. Once she has experienced the intense affection and devotion he initially showed, she will keep chasing that feeling, even when his behavior changes. Whenever he withdraws, criticizes, or manipulates her later on, she holds on to the hope that the loving man she first met will return. This hope keeps her trapped, believing that if she just tries harder, the relationship can go back to what it once was. Another key element of this false affection is how the narcissistic husband mirrors his wife. He studies her likes, dislikes, dreams, and insecurities, then presents himself as the perfect match. If she loves music, he claims to love the same bands. If she values ambition, he paints himself as a visionary. If she struggles with insecurity, he reassures her with exaggerated compliments. This mirroring makes her feel understood on a deep level, but in reality, he is simply reflecting her back to herself. It is not genuine compatibility. It is manipulation disguised as connection. Over time, once he feels he has secured her loyalty, the illusion starts to crack. The compliments turn into criticism, the attention becomes control, and the affection fades into indifference. But by then she is emotionally bonded. She remembers the man who made her feel like the most important person in the world, and cannot understand why he has changed. What she doesn't realize is that the man she fell in love with was never real. He was a carefully constructed mask. The danger of this illusion is that it creates confusion. Friends and family may have doubts about him early on, but she defends him because her experience of the relationship began with overwhelming love and attention. She cannot reconcile the charming, romantic man he once was with the cold, critical partner he has become. This confusion often silences her, making her feel isolated and alone in her pain. True love is consistent, steady, and patient. It does not disappear once commitment is secured. A narcissistic husband, however, uses love as bait. His affection is conditional, temporary, and ultimately self-serving. Recognizing that the initial love was a strategy, rather than a reflection of his true character, is one of the hardest, but most important steps in breaking free from his manipulation. In the end, the illusion of love is a trap designed to disarm and captivate. It is the first step in a long pattern of control and abuse. Understanding this truth allows women to see that they are not at fault for the changes in their relationship. They were never truly loved by the narcissist, only used for admiration, control, and ego. Once the mask falls, The path to healing begins with recognizing that the love they thought they had was never real. When a narcissistic husband enters into a relationship, he often pretends to be a caring and supportive partner. In the early stages, his wife may feel cherished and safe, believing she has found someone who values her deeply, but gradually, the warmth and tenderness begin to fade, and in their place comes control and manipulation. What once looked like partnership transforms into a one-sided power dynamic where the husband dictates the terms of the relationship. Control in a narcissistic marriage rarely begins in obvious or aggressive ways. Instead, it seeps in slowly, often disguised as concern or guidance. For example, he may start by suggesting what his wife should wear, claiming he just wants her to look her best. Or he might discourage her from spending time with certain friends, insisting that those people are a bad influence. At first, she may mistake these behaviors for signs of care, but over time she realizes they are about limiting her choices and isolating her from support systems. The manipulation becomes more apparent when she tries to assert herself. If she voices her opinion or makes a decision that contradicts his wishes, he might respond with anger, criticism, or guilt-tripping. He could say things like, "I do everything for you, and this is how you repay me," or, "If you loved me, you'd do it my way." Such statements are designed to make her feel selfish for wanting independence. Instead of working as a team, she feels pressured to submit in order to keep the peace. Gaslighting often becomes one of his most powerful tools. Whenever she calls out his controlling behavior, he denies it or twists the situation to make her feel like the unreasonable one. He may accuse her of being dramatic, overreacting, or imagining things. Over time, she begins to question her own judgment and loses confidence in her ability to see the truth. This confusion keeps her under his control because she becomes dependent on his version of reality. The shift from partnership to domination is also evident in daily decision-making. Instead of discussing plans together, the narcissistic husband expects his wife to follow his lead without question. He may control finances by limiting her access to money, monitoring her spending, or demanding that she justify every purchase. This financial dependency strips her of freedom and reinforces his power. Even in small matters, such as how the household is managed, what they eat, or where they go, his word becomes final. Manipulation also takes the form of conditional affection. When she complies with his wishes, he may reward her with moments of kindness or love. But when she resists, he withdraws affection, becomes cold, or gives her the silent treatment. This creates a toxic cycle, where she learns to suppress her own needs in order to gain his approval. Instead of feeling valued as an equal partner, she feels as though she must constantly earn his love by giving up her autonomy. One of the most devastating effects of this control is the way it slowly erodes her identity. A healthy marriage allows both partners to grow and support each other's individuality. In contrast, a narcissistic husband reshapes his wife into what he wants her to be, silencing her voice and diminishing her self-worth. Over time, she may stop pursuing her passions, abandon friendships, and even lose sight of her own goals, because everything revolves around keeping him satisfied. This gradual transformation is not accidental, it is calculated. The narcissistic husband knows that by replacing care with control, he ensures that his wife remains dependent on him. He doesn't want a partner, he wants possession. And the longer she remains under his influence, the more difficult it becomes for her to break free. Understanding this shift is crucial. It helps the wife see that what she is experiencing is not love, but manipulation disguised as concern. Real care uplifts and empowers, while narcissistic control diminishes and enslaves. Recognizing the difference is the first step toward reclaiming her independence and rebuilding a life where partnership means equality, not dominance. One of the most damaging ways a narcissistic husband treats his wife is through relentless criticism and devaluation. While every relationship has disagreements or moments of frustration, What happens in a narcissistic marriage goes far beyond normal conflict. It becomes a pattern where the wife is consistently belittled, undermined, and made to feel as though she is never good enough. This constant negativity slowly chips away at her confidence until she begins to believe the cruel words spoken to her. In the beginning, the wife may not even notice the criticism because it often starts subtly. The husband might disguise it as helpful advice or playful teasing. For example, he could say, "You'd look so much better if you lost a little weight," or "You're smart, but you don't really understand how the world works like I do." These comments may appear minor on the surface, but over time, they accumulate and send a clear message: she is inadequate. As the relationship progresses, the criticism becomes sharper and more frequent. Nothing she does seems to meet his standards. If she cooks dinner, he points out what she did wrong. If she dresses nicely, he criticizes her outfit choice. If she expresses an opinion, he dismisses it as silly or uninformed. The goal of these comments is not to improve her, but to keep her in a constant state of self-doubt. By tearing her down, he maintains control and ensures she looks to him for validation. Devaluation goes hand in hand with this criticism. After an initial stage of being placed on a pedestal, when he made her feel special and adored, he now shifts to making her feel small and insignificant. He may compare her unfavorably to other women, saying things like, "Why can't you be more like her?" Or, "Other wives do so much more for their husbands." He might even dismiss her accomplishments, belittling her career, talents, or personal achievements. No matter how much she gives or how hard she tries, it is never enough in his eyes. The emotional toll of this treatment is immense. When someone is constantly criticized by the person who is supposed to love and support them, they begin to internalize the negativity. The wife starts to believe she really is flawed, incompetent, or unworthy. Her self-esteem crumbles, and she begins to question her value, not just in the marriage, but in life itself. She may even stop pursuing goals or expressing her needs, because she assumes she will be ridiculed for them. Criticism from a narcissistic husband is also deeply confusing because it is often paired with occasional praise. He might belittle her for weeks, only to suddenly offer a compliment or show affection. This unpredictable pattern keeps her hooked, constantly striving for those rare moments of approval. She convinces herself that if she just works harder, she can win back his admiration. In reality, the cycle is designed to keep her dependent and insecure. Another devastating aspect of devaluation is the way it isolates her emotionally. Friends and family may not see the criticism because he often delivers it in private. In public, he may act supportive or even boast about her, creating the illusion of a happy marriage. This leaves her feeling alone, as if no one else would believe or understand what she is enduring behind closed doors. Over time, the wife may lose her sense of identity altogether. The vibrant, confident person she once was fades under the weight of constant judgment. She may stop recognizing her own strengths, talents, and beauty. This loss of self-worth is exactly what the narcissistic husband intends, because it makes her easier to control. A woman who doubts herself is less likely to leave, resist, or demand better treatment. But it is important to understand that this criticism is not a reflection of the wife's true worth. It is a weapon used by the narcissist to dominate and control. Genuine love builds up, encourages, and celebrates a partner. Narcissistic abuse does the opposite. It destroys self-esteem to maintain power. Recognizing that the criticism and devaluation are deliberate tactics can help a woman begin the process of healing, reminding her that she is worthy of love, respect, and kindness, no matter what her husband has made her believe. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious tools a narcissistic husband uses to control his wife. It is a psychological tactic that manipulates her perception of reality, leaving her questioning her own memory, judgment, and even sanity. Unlike open criticism or overt control, gaslighting works subtly, weaving confusion into everyday interactions, until she no longer trusts her own mind. This confusion is exactly what keeps her trapped, dependent, and vulnerable. The term, gaslighting, comes from the idea of dimming the light slowly, so that the person experiencing it begins to doubt their senses. In the context of a marriage, it plays out when a narcissistic husband denies, twists, or rewrites events that clearly happened. For example, if he says something cruel and she later confronts him, he may insist, "I never said that. You must be imagining things." If she catches him lying, he may accuse her of being paranoid or overly dramatic. Over time, this constant denial makes her feel like she is the problem, not him. Gaslighting doesn't always involve outright denial, sometimes it is disguised as concern. If she expresses hurt feelings, he may respond with, "You're too sensitive," or "You always overreact." By framing her emotions as irrational, he invalidates her experiences and teaches her to suppress her feelings. She begins to wonder if maybe she is overreacting, and eventually, she may stop voicing her needs altogether. Another form of gaslighting is shifting blame. If he forgets an important event, he may accuse her of not reminding him. If he behaves badly, he claims she provoked him. No matter what happens, the narrative is twisted until she feels responsible for his actions. This constant blame, shifting keeps her apologizing, even when she has done nothing wrong. She lives in a state of guilt and confusion, unsure of where reality ends and his version begins. Gaslighting also happens when he rewrites history. He may deny promises he once made or alter past events to suit his story. For example, if they argued about something a week ago, he might later claim the argument never happened, or that it happened in a completely different way. When she insists on what really occurred, he may mock her memory or accuse her of being unstable. This repeated rewriting of events creates deep self-doubt, making her feel as though she cannot even trust her own mind. The psychological impact of gaslighting is profound. A woman subjected to it for months or years may feel like she is losing her grip on reality. She becomes anxious, hesitant, and fearful of speaking up. Simple decisions feel overwhelming because she no longer trusts her ability to judge situations correctly. This self-doubt creates dependency on her husband, since he positions himself as the only one who truly knows what's real. A gaslighting also isolates her from others. If she tries to explain her experiences to friends or family, she worries they won't believe her, especially since her husband often appears charming and reasonable in public. He may even reinforce this by telling others she is forgetful, emotional, or unstable, making it harder for her to seek support. As a result, she feels trapped in a distorted world where her truth is constantly invalidated. The goal of gaslighting is control. By making his wife question her own reality, the narcissistic husband ensures she cannot challenge him effectively. If she cannot trust her perceptions, she cannot hold him accountable for his behavior. She becomes easier to manipulate, easier to silence, and easier to dominate. But despite how powerful gaslighting feels, recognizing it for what it is can be the first step toward freedom. Once a woman understands that her confusion is a deliberate tactic, she can begin to rebuild her trust in herself. Keeping a journal, confiding in trusted friends, or seeking professional support can help her anchor herself in reality. Over time, she can reclaim her confidence and see clearly that the problem was never her. It was the manipulation designed to control her. In the end, gaslighting is one of the cruelest forms of abuse, because it robs a person of the ability to trust their own mind. But awareness is the antidote. The more she learns to name the behavior, the less power it has over her. And with that clarity comes the strength to break free from the cycle of confusion and rediscover her own truth. A narcissistic husband knows that in order to maintain power over his wife, he must limit her access to independence and outside support. Two of the most effective ways he achieves this are through isolation and financial control. These tactics may not always appear obvious at first, but over time, They create a cage that keeps the wife dependent on him emotionally, socially, and materially. By cutting her off from others, and restricting her financial freedom, he ensures that leaving him feels nearly impossible. Isolation often begins subtly. At the start of the relationship, he may frame his actions as romantic or protective. For example, he might say, "I just want to spend all my time with you," or, "Your family doesn't really understand you like I do." At first, this attention may feel flattering, but gradually, it morphs into control. He may criticize her friends, suggesting they are a bad influence, or create conflicts that make her feel uncomfortable seeing them. He might start complaining every time she makes plans without him, until she eventually avoids going out to prevent arguments. Family relationships often become strained as well. A narcissistic husband may plant seeds of doubt about her loved ones, saying things like, "They don't really care about you," or, "They're jealous of our relationship." Over time, she distances herself from the very people who could offer her perspective and support. In some cases, he may outright forbid her from visiting family or speaking to them regularly. This isolation ensures that his version of reality goes unchallenged. Social isolation also extends to her professional or personal pursuits. He may discourage her from working, studying, or pursuing hobbies, often under the guise of wanting to take care of her. But what he is really doing is stripping away opportunities for her to build confidence, friendships, and independence. Without these outlets, she becomes more dependent on him for both emotional fulfillment and practical needs. Financial control deepens this dependency. Money is a powerful tool, and a narcissistic husband often uses it to keep his wife trapped. He may insist on managing all household finances, leaving her with little or no access to bank accounts. Even if she earns her own income, he might demand control over her paychecks or pressure her to quit her job. By limiting her access to money, he ensures that she cannot make independent choices, whether it's buying something for herself, seeking professional help, or leaving the relationship. In some cases, financial control appears as constant monitoring. He might scrutinize every purchase, demand receipts, or accuse her of being irresponsible with money. This not only humiliates her, but also creates fear around spending, making her hesitant to use money, even when she has access to it. Over time, she begins to feel incapable of handling finances on her own, reinforcing her dependency on him. The combination of isolation and financial control creates a powerful trap. Without supportive friends or family, and without the means to support herself, the wife feels cornered. Even if she recognizes the abuse, leaving seems overwhelming or impossible. The narcissistic husband knows this, and that is exactly why he uses these tactics. They guarantee his dominance. The psychological effects are equally damaging. She may feel lonely, powerless, and increasingly disconnected from her own identity. With no external validation or financial freedom, her world shrinks until it revolves entirely around him. This makes it easier for him to manipulate her further, since she lacks both the resources and the support network to resist. But understanding this tactic is critical. When a woman recognizes that her isolation and financial dependency are not accidents but deliberate strategies, she can begin to reclaim her power. Reaching out to even one trusted person, seeking resources for financial independence, or discreetly building connections again can be the first steps toward breaking free. Ultimately, a healthy marriage thrives on partnership, shared responsibility, and mutual support. A narcissistic marriage, by contrast, thrives on control, deprivation, and dependence. Isolation and financial control are not signs of love, they are tools of dominance. And once they are exposed for what they are, a woman can begin to rebuild the connections and independence she needs to reclaim her freedom and self-worth. One of the most confusing and painful aspects of living with a narcissistic husband is the stark contrast between the way he behaves in public and how he behaves in private. To the outside world, he may appear charming, attentive, and even devoted. Friends, colleagues, and extended family often see him as a model husband, but behind closed doors the mask comes off. In private, his wife experiences neglect, cruelty, and objectification. This duality not only keeps her trapped but also leaves her feeling invisible and doubting her own reality. In public, the narcissistic husband thrives on admiration. He knows how to play the role of the loving partner, because it earns him praise and strengthens his image. At gatherings, he might hold his wife's hand, compliment her appearance, or boast about her talents. To onlookers, this paints a picture of a healthy, happy marriage. People may even envy her, believing she is married to a man who treats her with respect and adoration. What they don't realize is that this performance is carefully crafted to maintain his reputation and control the narrative. The wife, on the other hand, knows a very different man at home. Once the audience disappears, so does the charm. In private, he treats her less like a partner and more like an object that exists to serve his needs. Her feelings, opinions, and desires are dismissed or ignored. Instead of being valued as an equal, she becomes a tool for his convenience. Someone to cook, clean, provide intimacy, and admire him. But not someone whose inner life matters. This drastic contrast between public and private behavior is not accidental. It is a deliberate strategy. By maintaining the image of a perfect husband, he discredits his wife if she ever dares to speak up about his abuse. If she tells others how badly he treats her, they may struggle to believe her, because what they've seen contradicts her story. Some may even accuse her of exaggerating or being ungrateful, further isolating her and reinforcing his control. This public-private divide also adds to her confusion. She may question why he is capable of kindness in front of others, but refuses to show it at home. She wonders if the problem lies within her, thinking, maybe if I were better, he would treat me the way he does in public. This internal conflict keeps her trapped, always striving to win back the version of him that seems so loving to outsiders. The emotional toll of this dynamic is profound. Living with a man who shows two completely different faces creates a sense of instability and self-doubt. She never knows which version of him she will encounter. In public, she is pressured to smile and play along, pretending everything is fine. In private, she endures neglect, criticism, or even cruelty. This constant switching erodes her sense of safety and identity, leaving her exhausted and deeply isolated. The public image also serves another purpose. It gives him access to admiration and validation, which are the fuel a narcissist craves. He uses his wife as a prop in this performance, expecting her to play her role flawlessly. If she fails to smile or contradicts his image, he may punish her later in private, accusing her of embarrassing him or not being supportive enough. This further conditions her to stay silent and play along, no matter how much she is suffering. Over time, this treatment makes her feel more like an object than a human being. Objects don't have feelings, needs, or opinions. They exist to be used. That is how the narcissistic husband sees his wife behind closed doors. He wants control, admiration, and obedience, not love, intimacy, or partnership. Recognizing this two-faced behavior is crucial for the wife's healing. It helps her see that the charming public persona is not the real man, but a mask designed for others. The private cruelty is the truth of his character. By understanding this, she can stop blaming herself for the inconsistency and see clearly that she is not failing as a wife. The narcissist is failing as a partner. A true marriage is consistent, honest, and built on mutual respect. When someone is only loving for show but cruel in private, that is not love, it is manipulation. Once she sees this reality, she can begin the journey of reclaiming her voice, her truth, and her right to be treated as a human being, not an object.